Okay, for those of you who are with us, back with us, again, welcome back, welcome in, welcome towards. My name is Leora. We were with each other this morning and we've been together off and on throughout the day. For those of you who've been with us the full day, what a thing for your bodies and your minds to be holding and experiencing. And Candice is going to help us close out. If you did not get to meet Candice this morning, you've heard their scholarship and teachings referenced by most of the faculty throughout all today. And I just want to do a big, big, big welcome back. And please join me in the chat box to welcome back Candice Valenzuela, who is a mother, lecturer, facilitator, writer, therapist, and community wellness advocate. Candice has worked in education spaces and holistic health spaces for 16 probably million years, no, 16 years, 16 plus years, and has had many, many, many roles that I have gotten to witness up close and afar, from both in classroom, in school spaces, space holder, and now we're so grateful, therapist, to really continue to create therapeutic spaces wherever they go. I'm so grateful, Candice, that you've dedicated your life, heart work to transforming schools and communities, to really be healing and relational. And we're grateful for you and to be learning with you. Candice will offer a closing, and then you'll see me come back on, and then we'll move into our optional breakout. But for now, Candice, the mic is yours.
Thank you for that welcome, Leora. It's good to be back. And I know that I'm feeling a lot in my body right now after spending the day with everyone and the incredible panelists and speakers. And there's a lot moving inside of me, but it's a good feeling because it feels like I'm alive. And so I'm really grateful for everyone. And my closing is going to continue with the framing I offered in the morning, which is how might it help us to interact with grief as a force of nature. So I'm going to be bringing that back in, and while I do that, I think I want to invite everyone to get comfortable where you're sitting. If you've been sitting a long time, maybe stand. If you've been in one position and you're too tired to stand, maybe finding another position that's more comfortable for your body. So I want to invite everyone to do a little self-care check-in, and particularly maybe taking a few breaths and coming back to that slow moment. So many presenters today have spoke to the importance of slowing down to actually experience our grief and the messages that it has for us. And so coming back to that slow pace right now and maybe noticing what's alive for you in this moment as I pull up my slides. And as always, if I am offering something as an activity or reflection that doesn't work for you, you are always, always invited to change that, to adjust it, and to make it your own. I hope for this brief time to be a time of resourcing for all of us. So if you have a piece of paper close to you, some way you like to reflect, I want to invite you to pull that out. Or if you'd like this to be an internal reflection where you hold these thoughts and feelings and presences inside, I'm going to offer a few questions that will hopefully help us to integrate and close. And I found that openings are so important when relating to grief, but so are closures, because while we want to invite this work in, and there's so much depth and importance and urgency to it, we also have to be mindful from a trauma-informed lens that we're not overwhelming our system. We're all actively still practicing and developing the capacities, the window of tolerance to actually be able to tolerate powerful emotions such as grief. And it's so important that we practice with trauma-informed, because our culture doesn't allow all these spaces for grief, which is why we need this space. But that also means that many times we're out of practice and big emotions may be unfamiliar or even unsafe for our bodies. And so we want to take this time to reflect and hopefully help us close the door on today, not like shut, and sealed, but gently closed lovingly so that we can go into the rest of our day, but also know when the time is right, we also come back and find the resources that we put there in the space. Okay? So as we breathe, what is alive in you now? What's alive? So much of the grief talk necessarily centers around death and loss. But there's something about aliveness here too. So what is alive in you? I know you've been asked this in each of the individual sessions, but if you think about the full day experience, what are you taking out with you? What will be following you beyond this space? And along those lines, what are you leaving behind? There may have been some reframes you received today, aspects of shame or other grief inhibiting behaviors or feelings or thoughts that you notice in yourself and your communities. What do you hope to also leave behind? And breathing with that. And if it feels okay, maybe hopping into the chat and sharing some of that with our community, or what's alive for you, what you're taking out of the space, and what you're leaving behind. And I'll take a quick peek to see what we're sharing. I will share that for myself. I was honored to sit in the second session, and there were some phrases that I'm taking with me into my work from that session. Shadim Hannigan Martinez says, we have to build structures for the messiness of grief. I'm taking that with me and grateful for those words. I think it was Shadim who also said that grief is courageousness in the duality. Yeah. So being courageous enough to hold the duality within grief. And this wasn't said in a session, but it's something that's been with me throughout the day, is that grief today has largely been talked about as a human experience. And I know that that can be very resourcing to think of it as something that all humans at some point in our lives will experience. But I also want to offer that grief is an experience of many living beings. In the way that I understand my relationship to the earth, grief can be in the soil. Elephants are known to have very, very extensive and prolonged grieving processes. I believe it was somewhere around 2 years ago where it was a public story about an orca. I don't know if anyone who remembers that. There was an orca who had a calf, and I believe that they were both very endangered, and the calf died, and the mother carried that calf. The orca swam back and forth carrying that calf for a very long time. I don't remember how long. Yeah. Thanks, Christine. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And for me, that also invites me into a larger spaciousness. That it is a living experience that is shared with all living beings, not only humans. And how can that be a resource to all of us and a remembrance of what we belong to? Thank you for sharing in the chats. And so now I'm going to invite us into another nature meditation, similar to the one we did this morning. Once again, I'm going to play a video just briefly, about 2 minutes or so. And I want us to stay in touch with our body sensations and our breath, whether we choose to watch the video or resource in another way. Maybe you need to close your eyes from the screen or stand up and move. You're invited to do all of that. You're also going to hear my child in the background who invites us to joy. And this video, for context, is a brief video talking about how life, how forest fires in their natural element obviously bring about a lot of destruction, but they also can ignite all of these additional living processes. And so I want to offer this as a meditation in the context of grief. So find a comfortable position, listen and watch, or simply be present for about 2 minutes.
There's a rare and magical kind of forest in the American West. This forest is ephemeral, springing suddenly into being. We never know where it will appear next. It is the home to a unique community of plants and animals. This fleeting forest is as ecologically valuable.
I'm seeing some notices here that some folks can't hear. Is that right?
Sound is just soft. You can just maybe turn up the sound, but the sound is soft.
It's there, but it's soft. Okay. Let's stop it for a moment and reshare. Sometimes that will do the trick. Let's try again.
As our treasured old-growth forest.
Is that better? Leora, was that better?
Yeah, that was better.
Yes,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
There is a rare and magical kind of forest in the American West. This forest is ephemeral, springing suddenly into being. We never know where it will appear next. It is the home to a unique community of plants and animals. This fleeting forest is as ecologically valuable as our treasured old-growth forests, and even more scarce because it's so short-lived. In momentary magic, it flowers and thrives for just a handful of years, providing home to a ride of life. Countless creatures come from miles away to partake of its seemingly endless bounty. This is the intensely burned forest. It begins with a lightning strike deep in the forest. A tree ignites and a fire soon spreads in a natural event that has been repeated innumerable times for millennia. Native beetles sense the smoke and heat from miles away and immediately swarm in huge numbers to the newly burned forest. These beetles deposit millions of their eggs inside the dead and dying trees. The beetle eggs soon hatch into larvae, which feed upon the sapwood under the blackened bark. Rare black-backed woodpeckers also sense the fire and flock to the burned trees to feast upon the...
Okay, I'm gonna pause that there. Um, and what I want to do now is just allow you to take another moment to touch into your body and just kind of reflect. What did you feel in your body? This is just for you. As you watch the images of the burning forest, the sounds of the birds, the soft voice of the commentator, what other images or memories came to mind as you think about what's alive for you now, and how it feels that to connect that to the processes of nature. And I'm seeing in the chat that a lot of people have connected to this in the way that that I do. And when I was at Castlemont High School, gosh, almost 10 years ago, and we lost students to gun violence, and we're holding all of the big energies that we're talking about today. When nothing else could hold me, nature could hold me. And I know that isn't true for everyone, but I want to offer it as a resource, whether you're someone who avidly engages with nature every day or someone for whom that feels far away. I want to offer it because no matter how we feel, there is never a moment that we are outside of nature. There is never a moment that anything we are experiencing or feeling or thinking is outside of nature, because we are nature. And this is a wisdom that we've become separated from through the colonial process. So we are nature. And I'm remembering the words also of Steph Cariaga in her session where she shared, we know how to grieve because we have bodies, right? Our bodies know how to grieve. And our bodies are nature. And so I was taught this by my Mexica and African indigenous healing teachers, that when something is too big to hold, you give it to nature. And the image of burning forests is what I saw when I was grieving and giving my grief to nature. And I saw that from so much destruction, there are things that will be lost and can never return, but there are also new things that will be born that perhaps have never also been seen before. And I love the image. I know that bugs can be kind of like, I have a love-hate relationship with bugs, but I love the idea of these beetles that can smell the smoke, and they come, and it's the only place they lay their eggs. And their life cycle depends on this process of destruction. Yeah. And how are we a part of that too in this work, right? So I offer this closing image, and I hope that it's helpful. And the last thing I'm going to say here is that on the other side of grief, this teaching of nature teaches me that grief holds twinship with joy. And that's come up a lot today, the duality there. And for me, the experience is that only when I am deeply in contact with what I have lost and what I love and what I need, do I feel alive enough to experience joy. And so I have this picture of my child, my beautiful creative child, and we were having a rough day, as is often the case for the parents out there. And I noticed my body constricting and just shutting down. And I said, okay, I need support. And it's just me and you here. We need support. And I said, and we talked about it. And I said, um, I would like to do a gratitude practice. What do you think? And my kids said, yeah, let's do it. They were really into it. And so we actually were working on that today too, and we cut little pieces of paper and we wrote down what we were grateful for. And my child, my beautiful child, on their own wrote, grateful for Creator. And so that brought me a lot of joy and depth and connection to see my 6-year-old inhabiting this relationship with nature and creation that it took me, so many decades to find for myself. And so I want to leave everyone with the image of hope and joy and replenishment, and that the work we are doing now, it matters, and we're planting those seeds. We're planting those seeds in that scorched earth for the next generation. And I thank you for that. I thank you for being here with us and all of us. And so here are my contact handles if you'd like to keep in contact with me in some capacity. And I thank you all for the space, and I hope it was supportive. And I'll turn it back over to our lovely facilitators.
Thank you, Candice. Thank you. I'd really love for folks in the chat box to offer Candice affirmation or also offer a feeling of resonance. We're so grateful that we ended with the twinship of joy, of both grief and joy, that really resonated throughout the ending of yesterday and the ending of today. And I'm grateful that with a lot of the heaviness that today can bring up, that we can also remind ourselves of the silliness and pureness of our spirits and what it can mean to reconnect with that. Thank you. I'm taking a breath. Again, Leora, thank you for being here. We want to do a massive, 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 massive full body extension of gratitude and thank you to GSVLI 2022. Y'all, come on with it. Like we just did. I'm going to try and slow down for interpreters. I was reminded. We just did 2 really, really rich days of a lot, and I mean a lot. And I want to give my utmost gratitude to all of you for showing up in this weird experience of virtual community building. We want to affirm the amount of resources that you gave yourselves and each other, of beautiful questions that you offered, and also the digital vulnerability that it takes to offer reflection and resonance to people that you don't know and can't see. Truly, thank you. Let's move it to the next visual. Hi, Linda, good to see you. I want to do a really warm invitation to give us some feedback about how either yesterday and also or today landed for you. And you can even hold up your phones if you press the camera on your iPhone. I don't know if it works for Android, hashtag iPhone bias, but if you hold up your phone to the QR code, hopefully the survey will come up. I'm going to ask for my colleagues to continue to put the survey link in the box. You may need to copy and paste it into your browser in order for it to come up. I want to just be really honest. We were asked by our funder, the Substance Use and Mental Health Administration, in 2020 to do something when it came to grief counseling. And so we, as a whole network, came up with this idea of GSVLI, of what we put together in 2020, and the 5 fact sheets that are on our resource page. And then we were kind of done with our ask. But we knew from the power of 2020 and the deep loss and need that has happened since then and now that this work continues to be necessary, continues to be expansive, and continues to call us into our best mental health and school mental health provider selves. So the more feedback we get from you, the more encouragement and call in it will be for us to continue to provide this no-cost work for you. This no-cost work for you. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. I'm just going to read some of the resonance. We see the last 2 days have been incredible. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from everyone who shared and presented both formally and through the contributions in the chat box. That's right. Thank you. We're going to move ahead I want to do another massive, massive thank you to all of our faculty who presented today, to Candice, who opened us this morning and closed us this afternoon, to our moderators, Martha and Oriana and Jessica, for really doing thoughtful space holding, for Heather Gotham, the director of the National Coordinating Office, and every single member of our MHTTC network who collaboratively funded for all of our presenters to be able to be here today. So grateful.